speaker came all the way from Texas. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for coming all the way from Texas. I want everyone to meet Vineeth John, MD, MBA, the John S. Dunn Professor and Vice Chair for Education in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. As Director of the Geriatric Psychiatry Section, he enhances education for psychiatry residents. With training from Christian Medical College in India and fellowships at Tufts and the University of Miami, Vineeth has held, I should say Dr. John for respect, Dr. John has held leadership roles at top institutions. In his talk, The Power of Risk-Taking, he will share insights from his research on leadership and risk.
In his book, The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho says, everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits them. We, people's hearts, seldom say much about those treasures because people no longer want to go in search of them. We speak of them only to children. But unfortunately, very few follow the path laid out for them, the path to their destinies. IndiXspark families, my question to all of you is, what prevents us from taking that path to our own respective destinies? Dr. Abraham Verghese is a talented writer. He's a well-known infectious disease specialist. He works for Stanford University. And I could say it with a certain sense of authority, at this very moment, he probably is the most famous physician author in the world. And what I am hoping to do is to take a little bit of his life story and be inspired with all of you to make sure that we could forge our own paths to our destinies. When I first encountered Dr. Verghese's writing, I was a third-year resident at Tufts New England Medical Center, Boston. It was a fall day in 1998. I had gone to the post office because Amazon never delivered at home at that time. Picked up the book, came to our apartment, and never left our newly purchased Jennifer convertible couch. I don't even think I even moved to eat anything. The book was called My Own Country, and people who have not read it, it details Dr. Verghese's life in a small town in Tennessee called Johnson City, where he worked as an AIDS doctor, taking care of patients ravaged by the illness called AIDS. Dr. Verghese's words were like pure gold to me. They spoke to me because, like him, I was a foreign medical graduate with such naive ambition to excel in academic medicine. I also wanted to be a writer, talking about the coming-of-age story of an Indian medical student in the 80s. Most importantly, I thought Dr. Verghese understood me as a bumbling family man who couldn't even take care of the basics of domestic duties. That weekend, I never moved from the couch. I was enthralled by Dr. Verghese's words. And there is so much in his life story. Dr. Verghese's life story is like an epic adventure. It traverses many countries and multiple continents. He was born in Ethiopia to parents who were both from Kerala, who were both physics teachers, but they met for the first time in Addis Ababa. Verghese was the middle child of 3 boys. And he noticed one thing. Unlike his brothers, who were so talented in mathematics and physics, he had no skill in those 2 subjects. Instead, he loved reading. And while reading a book by Somerset Maugham called Of Human Bondage, he fell in love with his calling, which was medicine. Dr. Verghese starts his education in Ethiopian Medical College, but within few years, his medical education was disturbed by civil unrest and political violence. He moves to the US, where he works as an orderly in some of the nursing homes in New Jersey, where we are right now, probably emptying bedpans as his main duty. You could say that he might be relieved that he was escaping the political violence of Ethiopia. He probably had a steady job, a car, maybe a girlfriend. But was he happy? then comes an incident which he describes. He notices a textbook of medicine known to all medical students all over the world. It's called Harrison's Textbook of Internal Medicine. Probably left by a medical student with attention deficit disorder. But that textbook made him realize that he had a great calling for medicine, a great longing for medicine. He writes, I had learned that book inside out, and I just had this great sense that I could not let that all go. Through some family connection, classic for Malayalis, he finds himself in a medical college in Madras, now called Chennai, where he completes his medical education. He comes back to the US, finds a residency in a very small internal medicine department at Johnson City, Tennessee. Finishing his residency, he goes to Boston University and he does a fellowship in in infectious diseases. And that's when the AIDS epidemic hits the US. He comes back to Johnson City and starts taking care of patients and becomes the only physician who's dedicated to the taking care of those patients. So, true to the point of engagement with the audience, this is my question. How many of you think Dr. Verghese took any risk in his life? How many of you think? Few hands, few nervous hands. Okay, fair enough. What kind of risk did he take? Number one, he chose a field very different than his parents. And we heard some of our own speakers saying that they were told very clearly by the parents what to choose. And some of them chose different fields. Dr. Verghese listened to his gut and chose a field which was a calling to him. Second, he had to leave his birth country, come to a new country, then move to a third country to complete his medical education. Third, he was taking care of patients with AIDS when no definitive cure was on sight, which increased the risk of infecting both himself and his young family. It is now late 1989, and Dr. Verghese was asked to meet with the administrator of the hospital. The man insinuated, in rather kind of a scathing way, that Dr. Verghese's reputation as an AIDS doctor was giving the hospital a lot of trouble. His patients were staying longer, they couldn't pay the bills. At best, it was an infuriating and frustrating and humiliating meeting for Dr. Verghese. He was burned out by then. Within months, he resigns his job. He cashes in 401k, relocates his whole family to the Iowa's famous creative writing program called Iowa Writers Workshop. He also does a small assignment with Iowa's AIDS clinic. Now is my question. If somebody else at you tells you you're the reason why they are losing money, would you give up your whole academic career and take up a writing course? What do people think? I wouldn't do it. So the question is, what is holding us from taking these risks? What is holding us from viewing these things and seeing an opportunity? As a psychiatrist, I could tell you that we are prisoners of our past. We are tied to our rituals, our traditions. They shackle us, they paralyze us. They eventually prevent us from living a life of freedom and creativity. Second, we're all scared to fail. But without failure, there's no growth. Ask any child who's fallen 1,000 times before they get to walk and eventually to run. And then something one of the speakers said resonated with me, that we are very comfortable with, and we don't see any need to change. In his book, The Hidden Potential, Wharton Business School professor Dr. Grant says, we have to make friends with this feeling of discomfort. To succeed and grow, we need the courage to do three things. One, we need to abandon the kind of regular, tested, and try-to-do methods. Second, we need to be ready to put ourselves in the ring even before we feel ready. And third, we need to make more mistakes than anyone else makes efforts. Seeking the comfortable world of medicine, Dr. Verghese started working at the Writers' Conference. He had to read books of authors he had never heard about. He had to put his writing for other professors and other peers to keep talking and critiquing. So in some way, He was fearless in seeking discomfort. His story, Lilacs, was published in October 1991. He gave a great book proposal to New Yorker, article proposal New Yorker. They turned it down, but in a sheer genius, he turned it a book proposal, which was written for My Own Country, published in 1994. He moves to El Paso. He befriends a medical student who was a professional level tennis player, but was also a cocaine addict. And he writes this book called The Tennis Partner, which becomes a success as well. And in 2009, he publishes a book, Cutting for Stone, which is sold millions of copies. And in 2023 May, he's published his latest book, The Covenant of Water, which has made Oprah's best seller list, favorite books, and is published to rave reviews. We can ask ourselves, what makes Dr. Verghese such an amazing writer? One is his exceptional curiosity. He has no problem talking to his patients for hours, going to their houses, going to their families, getting to know his patients. He's got prodigious memory, not like me looking at these notes. He could talk for 90 minutes without even consulting a single note. He's truly devoted to medicine. He is one of the most admired clinician educators at Stanford. He has a course called Stanford 25. He has compassion, and he has courage. In his books, you hear about his vulnerabilities, his failures. Not everything has worked out. So, dear friends, all I wanted to tell you was the fact that using the lens and focusing on a lens on Dr. Verghese's life, we can find the courage and we can find the inspiration to follow that path to a destiny. Thank you.